I want to thank you for joining me here today for another interactive session. We want to be continuing Human Anatomy and Physiology, lesson number 5. We had a very good session last time, and I hope that you have had a chance to review your notes and we are ready for today. We do these videos because we do have an online platform, and persons from time to time want to be sure that they are getting all of the information, and we want to be sure of that also. Also, we know that sometimes when we reinforce the material, then it is much better. We just want to get on with the show, put the show on the road, as we would normally say. We're gonna put the show on the road. So how have you been doing? My name is June Lewis. I represent for the entity Hands for the Aged Tutoring Services. We have covered several topics leading up to this one, and we want to approach this one with the same type of energy that we approached any of the others. So sit back, relax, and let us have a very good time together. In my text, I would have much more notes than you do, and that is also based on the type of course, which one of the course you have signed up for. So we had finished with the skeletal system last time. We wrapped up by doing the fontanelles, and we touched a little on the appendicular skeleton, and there were some things that you need to be reading for yourself. So we scurry on. We're going to take a look today at the nervous system. In many of the courses, it's a very introductory topic. There are a lot of information around on the internet, in textbooks, and so forth. And so we encourage you to continue your reading. All right, so today we're looking at the nervous system. We're looking today at the nervous system, and we're saying that the branch of science that deals with the normal functioning and disorders of the nervous system is called neurology, and that a neurologist is a physician who specializes in the diagnosis and treatment of disorders of the neuromuscular system. The nervous system is one of the smallest and yet the most complex of the 11 body systems. So here we're talking about 11 body systems. We're going to try and list them here. All right, so let's go. So we're going to have this one and this one. All right, and this one and this one and this one and this one. So help me along as we go. Okay, where we start? Skeletal-muscular. No, it's the other way around. It's muscular, skeletal. Muscular, skeletal. Muscular, skeletal. Okay. All right. So let us start here with the muscular, skeletal system. And here you hear talking about, and here they mention muscular and skeletal, which means there are two systems functioning here: the muscular system and the skeletal. Okay. Then we have the nervous. That's the one we're going to be looking at. That's the one that we're going to be looking at now. Then let us look at the digestive. They're in no particular order. The endocrine, the respiratory, reproductive, urinary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Two more to go. We also have the circulatory, and this is broken down into two. And there is one more. So the circulatory will be broken into the lymphatic and the cardiovascular system. So we have the musculoskeletal we looked at, and here we have two systems in play here. We have the muscular and the skeletal, and we have the nervous, the digestive, endocrine, respiratory, reproductive, urinary, and the circulatory. Again, we have the circulatory being broken into two because we have two circulatory systems that work in the body. Here we have the lymphatic and the cardiovascular. And then there is another one here. I don't quite remember the name now. So here we have two. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there is, okay, the integumentary system, of which the skin belongs to this system. So the skin is a part of this system. Our organ, the skin, is a part of the integumentary system. In some literature, you might find that they talk about 9 systems. And when they're talking about 9 systems, they do not explain muscular and skeletal as 2 different systems. In the same way, the circulatory system is not broken into 2. It is sometimes just referred to as the circulatory system without saying lymphatic and cardiovascular. You just say circulatory. And when it is given like that, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So some literature you might see 9 systems, and in some literature you will see 11. Just note that if you do see 9, they have not broken the musculoskeletal into muscular system and skeletal. Neither have they broken the circulatory into lymphatic and cardiovascular. Let us bear that in mind. Today we're looking at the nervous system. We have gone through several of the systems before. We have done this one already. And we have done this one already. This is the one that we're doing today. Okay, my people, so let's move on. Remember last time when we were doing the skeletal system, you have to draw the human skull, showing a lot of unique features. The nervous system is one of the smallest and yet most complex of the 11. A nerve cell is called a neuron. Neuron, so when you see the word neuron, they are referring to a nerve cell. You'll find this term coming up in your notes, meninges, and this term you'll find throughout life. You hear about the term, or you hear the term meningitis, and this has to do with the meninges. So you need to remember what meninges are. Not to be walking around with it in your head and carrying on, but to have a working idea and knowledge of what meninges are. And these are 3 connective tissue covering that encircle the spinal cord and the brain. So that is where you will find meninges, all right? Circling the spinal cord and the brain. So I'm going to put the word here, meninges. So we say a nerve cell is called a neuron. All right. So that's one of the things we talk about, and we're going to talk about meninges. All right. And you hear the term meningitis. Often it means an inflammation of the meninges of the brain and or spinal cord. All right, so meninges are connective tissue covering that encircles or covers, wraps around the brain and spinal cord. Okay? So that's what meninges are. So we have an assignment. Research the name and location and function of the 12 pairs of cranial nerves. So we do have a cranial nerve. So we're talking about nerves. You have 12 pairs of cranial nerves. And what is this? 33 pairs of spinal nerves. And these nerves, they do have specific functions. Yes, so you have to research the names and the location and the function of the 12 pairs of cranial nerves. The skull encloses the brain, which contains billions of neurons. 12 pairs of cranial nerves, 12 on the right, 12 on the left, 12 pairs. 12 pairs of cranial nerves, numbered 1 through to 12, emerges from the base of the brain. 12 pairs of cranial nerve emerges from the base of the brain. Each nerve follows a defined path and serves a specific region of the body. For example, cranial nerve 1 carries signal for the sense of smell. So when we smell something, it is the cranial nerve, the number 1, that pair of cranial nerve that is activated. In some persons, they may have some illnesses, some condition that might cause the nerve not to function. So if a cranial nerve is damaged, then that can have very serious implications. So if cranial nerve, number 1, is damaged, then our sense of smell will be affected. We can look at the functions of the nervous system. So the nervous system carries out many tasks, but these tasks can be grouped into 3 basic functions: sensory, integrative, and motor. Functions of the nervous system. You have 3 main functions. You have sensory, integrative, and motor. Sensory receptors detect internal stimuli such as increase in blood acidity, and that's internal, or an external stimuli such as a raindrop landing on our arm, maybe a spider crawling, an insect bite, and so on. So those are external stimuli, external to the body. Then as an integrative function, the nervous system integrates, that means it processes sensory information by analyzing and storing some of it, by making decisions for appropriate responses. An important integrative function is perception, the consciousness awareness of sensory stimuli. Sensory, that has to do with our senses, hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, and the other one. Perception occurs in the brain. At the motor function level, our sensory information is integrated. The nervous system may elicit an appropriate motor response, such as muscle contraction or gland secretion. Motor neurons carry information from the brain towards the spinal cord, or out of the brain and the spinal cord to other parts of the body. We can look at the organization of the nervous system. The nervous system has 2 main divisions. All right, 2 main divisions. We have the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system has to do with the brain and the spinal cord. All right, so you can do continuous reading. So the organization of the nervous system, the nervous system has 2 main divisions: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord, whereas the peripheral nervous system includes all of the other nervous tissues outside of the central nervous system. So wherever else you have nervous tissues, those will be peripheral. They are outside of the central nervous system. They do not form part of the brain nor the spinal cord. Feeling, thinking, remembering, moving, and being aware of our surroundings require activity from the nervous system. The nervous system helps to coordinate all other body functions to maintain homeostasis. This is a word that you will need to look up. Homeostasis. Homeostatis. Homeostasis. Look up that word. So the nervous system helps to coordinate all other body functions to maintain homeostasis and to enable the body to respond to changing conditions. Sensory, having to do with our 5 senses. Sensory receptors bring information from within and from outside of the body to the brain and the spinal cord, which then stimulate responses from muscles and glands. And this will be the motor activities. A spider is crawling on your head, a message is sent to your brain, and the brain says, okay, slap the spider. So you respond by slapping the mosquito or the spider. That will be the information coming from the brain saying to you, listen, kill the spider, take a motor action. So we come to this word, this nice word, that is we call the neurotransmitters. Neuro, Neuro, in the nerve. So we talk about neurotransmitters. Okay. acetylcholine, norepinephrine, dopamine. So these are three examples of neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters. These are chemicals that the nerve cell secretes to cause muscle fibers to contract or an electrical impulse to be experienced. There are many neurotransmitters. About 50 types of neurotransmitters have been identified in the nervous system. Neurotransmitters are secreted by nerve cells. Some nerve cells release only one type of neurotransmitters, while others produce two or three kinds. Some neurotransmitters are classified as excitatory, to make you excited. For example, acetylcholine, which stimulates skeletal muscle contraction, and norepinephrine, which creates a sense of feeling good. Low levels of norepinephrine may lead to depression. The norepinephrine are found in both the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Other neurotransmitters are referred to as excitatory, cause us to get excited, and you have those that inhibit excitation, and these are inhibitory. They are called inhibitory because they lessen the chance that a nerve impulse will occur. For example, dopamine, which also creates a sense of feeling good. Deficiency of dopamine, the neurotransmitter dopamine, in some brain area is associated with Parkinson's disease. Persons who suffer from Parkinson's disease, this is one of the treatments that they might get, treatments of dopamine or amine. We did meet the term meninges, and we're saying that bones, membranes, and fluid surround the organs of the central nervous system. The brain lies within the cranial cavity of the skull. We had done cavities earlier in the beginning lectures, and the spinal cord occupies the vertebral canal within the vertebral column. So there is a canal within the column, and that is where the spinal cord sits. Beneath these bony coverings, membranes called meninges are located between the bone and the soft tissues of the nervous system, and they are there to protect the brain and the spinal cord. We want to be looking at the spinal cord. So what we were talking before basically had to do with the brain. So now let us take a look at the spinal cord. The spinal cord. So the spinal cord is within the spinal cavity, and the spinal cavity is found in the spinal column. The spinal cord is a slender nerve column that passes downward from the brain into the vertebral column. It tapers to a point and terminates near the intervertebral discs that separate the first and second lumbar vertebrae. Remember, earlier you will have to draw me a diagram of the vertebral column. I think this would be like the lumbar region. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, with 5 vertebrae. So the spinal cord consists of 31 segments. So you're going to make a diagram of the spinal cord, identifying these 31 segments. The spinal cord is a slender nerve column that passes downward from the brain into the vertebral canal. It tapers to a point and stops near the intervertebral disc that separates the first and the second lumbar vertebrae. So the spinal cord will be coming down, and if this is the first sacral vertebrae, then the spinal cord is stopping somewhere in that region. It doesn't go all the way down. So it terminates near the intervertebral discs that separates the first and the second lumbar vertebrae. You have met lumbar vertebrae several times before, so refer back to your notes, refer back to your diagram. Everything is connected and super connected. The spinal cord consists of 31 segments. Each give rise to a pair of spinal nerves. These nerves branch to various body parts that connect them with the central nervous system. The spinal cord consists of 31 segments. Each of the segments give rise to a pair of spinal nerves. These nerve branch to various body parts and connects them with the central nervous system. So remember, you need to draw me a diagram showing the vertebrae. All right, so we have 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Okay, so you're going to make me a diagram. 31 pair. So you're going to make me a diagram showing the 31 segments of the spinal cord. In the neck region, in the cervical region, right, in the neck region, that's the cervical region of the spinal cord, a thickening occurs. And this thickening is called cervical enlargement. Cervical enlargement. So in the cervical region, that means in the neck region, you have what is known as cervical enlargement. So here, cervical enlargement, it is a thickening in the spinal cord that supplies nerves in the upper limbs. All right. So in the neck region, a thickening in the spinal cord, in the neck region, the cervical region, a thickening in the spinal cord called cervical enlargement, supplying nerves to the upper limbs or upper extremities. A similar thickening in the lower back give rise to the lumbar enlargement, and these gives off nerve to the lower limbs. So you have the cervical, and then you have the lumbar. All right, and these supply nerves. This lumbar enlargement supply nerves to our lower limbs. This one supplies nerves to our upper limbs. What is the importance of the spinal cord? The spinal cord has two major functions. One, conducting nerve impulses, and two, serving as a center for nerve reflexes. The brain is comprised of many neurons, and the brain can be divided into three major portions: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brain stem. So if we take a quick look at the brain, we say the brain is divided into three regions: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brain stem. Each of these have their functions. So remember, when we're looking at the nervous system, we talk about the central nervous system and we talk about the peripheral nervous system. So we're in this course, we're looking mainly at the central nervous system, and that includes the brain and the spinal cord. Brain can be divided into three major portions: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brain stem. So the cerebrum is the largest of the three portions and contain nerve centers that associate with sensory and motor function. It provides higher mental function, including memory and reasoning. So, safe to say, persons who do not reason well, are we going to say that their cerebrum is not functioning well? I don't know. Then we have the cerebellum, and that involves coordinating voluntary muscle movements. So we are conscious of the things that are happening. We decide to pick up a pen or to write on the board. That's a voluntary action. Nerve pathways in the brain stem, the path that the nerve travels, will connect various parts of our nervous system, and it regulates certain visceral activities that are our internal organs, are also referred to as visceral organ, and the activities of certain visceral organs are regulated. So the brainstem is a bundle of nervous tissues that connect the cerebrum to the spinal cord. Briefly looking at the peripheral nervous system, this system consists of nerves that branch out from the central nervous system. The central nervous system contains all of the nerves that are not part of the brain and spinal cord, because the brain and spinal cord, that has to do with the central nervous system. Every other nerve has to do with peripheral nervous system. The perennial nervous system can be divided into many different branches. Cranial nerves, remember, the cranial nerves are a set of 12 paired nerves in the back of your brain. Cranial nerves send electrical signals between our brain, our face, our neck, and our torso. The cranial nerves help us to taste, smell, hear, and feel sensation. They also help us to make facial expressions, like if I smile or if I pout. All right, it is the cranial nerves that are responsible for that, for blinking my eyes and to move my tongue. The cranial nerves begin towards the back of our brain, and they are a key part of our nervous system. So we have 12 cranial nerve pair, and each pair splits to serve the two sides of our brain and our body. For example, we have one pair of olfactory means smell. We have one pair of olfactory nerves. One of the pair serves the left side of our brain, and the other serves the right side of the brain. So we are to make a list of the 12 cranial nerve, right, and the function that they have. This is not for you to go and swat, but there are a couple of that will jump out at you, like the olfactory nerve, sense of smell, optic, ability to see, and we have many more. The facial nerve allows us to make facial expression. Our vagus nerve shows our digestion and our heart rate. So what are the functions of the cranial nerves? Our cranial nerve play a role in controlling our sensation and our motor skills. Sensory nerves, it has to do with our senses: hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, feeling. Some cranial nerves have both sensory and motor function. Someone might ask you, what is the longest cranial nerve in our body? And this is our vagus nerve, and it has both sensory and motor function. This nerve runs many parts of our body, including our tongue, our throat, our heart, our digestive system. That has to do with the cranial nerve. There are many disorders and health conditions that affect our cranial nerves. We have 12 pairs. So some conditions or injuries can damage part of the brain where cranial nerves are located. In some cases, a condition may damage only one cranial nerve. Trauma or surgery could injure or sever a nerve. So basically, injury can cause damage to certain parts of the brain that house certain cranial nerve. And when the cranial nerve gets damaged, then we have a health situation brewing. So some of the disorders that affect the cranial nerve includes some big word: amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, where a progressive disorder where nerve cells break down and the muscles weaken. You can have Bell's palsy, so it's sudden muscle weakness again and drooping in one half of your face, that Bell's palsy. You have the hemifacial spasm, which is involuntary. So this has to do with the involuntary muscles. So involuntary contraction or twitching on one side of your face. So you can't control it. So you might see persons with a twitch. It is involuntary. They can't do anything about it. It's hemifacial spasm. So it's involuntary contraction on one side of your face. You have the oculomotor palsy. We met Bell's palsy. Now we're talking about the oculomotor palsy. So this has to do with the oculomotor nerve. So when you do your 12 cranial nerves, you will come across the oculomotor nerve, that pair of nerve, and what it controls. So damage to your the third cranial nerve, that causes one of your eyes to stay positioned as though you are looking down and out to the side. So that eye position is fixed, and that has to do with the damage to the oculomotor palsy. Now I don't know about cast eye, if this is what causes it. We can always ask Google whether cast eye is related to the oculomotor palsy. Then we might have a stroke, an interruption to the blood supply in our brain because of a blood clot or a rupture in a blood vessel. We can have a stroke also. We can have traumatic brain injury caused by a sudden blow to the head. So there are many situations that can occur to our cranial nerve. And there are common signs or symptoms of cranial nerve disorders. One such may affect the functions and sensation, because remember we said the cranial nerve has to do with sensory. As a result, different cranial nerve disorders have different symptoms. So your cranial nerves affect many functions and sensations. So as a result, different cranial nerve disorders have different symptoms. A cranial nerve disorder might affect our balance, our facial expression, our hearing, our sense of smell, swallowing, taste, vision. So these are some of the symptoms of a cranial nerve disorder. Now we have an assignment to do. We are to construct a graphic organizer. Listen carefully. Construct a graphic organizer of the divisions of the nervous system. We have started it before. The main concept is the nervous system. All right. We're going to branch the related concept from the main concept. All right. So we have to branch it. So we have to construct a graphic organizer of the divisions of the nervous system. So we start by the basic concept, which is the title. So we call it the nervous system. And then now we are to make branches. So here we'll have our central nervous system. We have the peripheral nervous system. Please to write out the words. Don't give me CNS and PNS unless you're going to tell me up here or someplace what these mean. You don't just throw these abbreviations at me. Tell me what they mean and then you can use them otherwise. So the central nervous system, we're talking about the brain and the spinal cord. And then you have the somatic and the, whatever, I don't remember what the other one name over there. Somatic and something else. And then these are going to be branching, and that is going to be branching, and then you have more branches, and then you have more branches, and then you have more branches, and more branches, until you come down to the bottom. All right, somatic and I think it's autonomous. I'm not sure. You can look it up. I'm not going to change it if it is even wrong. All right, so you will have to change it. You may write words on a line or in boxes to help explain the relationship of the related concept. So you can call me at any time and I will send you this assignment. But if you don't call me, then I know you understand it quite well. So you are to construct a graphic organizer of the divisions of the nervous system, including the following main concept, which is the title. Then you're gonna branch the related concept from the main concept. So these are the related concepts: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Use lines to connect the branches. Continue to branch out more specific details from the related concept. So you're gonna continue to branch out more details. The somatic is broken down so and so. The autonomic is broken so and so until you get to the end. Question: list the names and function of the cranial nerves. How many pair of spinal nerves are in the human body? Spinal nerves are not named individually like the cranial nerve. They are grouped according to the level from which they arise. Each nerve is numbered in sequence according to the region of the body where they are located along the spinal cord. So using your knowledge of the regions of the vertebral column, group the spinal nerves. For example, there are 8 pairs of cervical nerves, numbered as C1 to C8. Because in the cervical region, some literature will tell you there are 7 vertebrae. Some books will tell you that there are 8. Okay, people, and that is where we end the nervous system. Any questions? Write them in your book. I'll soon be coming around to check your questions, all right? Okay, people, it was nice being here with you. All right, so this is where we end our talk on the nervous system. I know you have questions, but don't just throw them at me. Write them in your books. I'm coming around to check. Write the questions in your book so that when we respond, we're going to discuss it, we're going to respond, then you write the information that we have gathered in your notes. Sometimes when you just wrote a question, by the time the question is answered, you yourself don't even remember the question that you asked. So we're trying to avoid that. So write the questions in your book. Yes, I see you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, 5 of you had your hands up. So I'm going to check you 5 first. So not because we're going to say, write the question, you're going to decide that you're not going to ask the question anymore. I see you. Yes, Yvonne, I see you. Tamika, Beverly, Roger, Jeremiah. Yeah, don't take time and take your hands down. I saw you. And the rest of you, find a question to put in your book. We still have time to answer those questions. All right? So we're going to end the video here, and I'm going to come around to check your books. All right, people? Until next time. Oh, the next topic we're going to be looking at is the endocrine system, right? And that we're going to move through quite fast. And then we get to the favorite, the circulatory system. So we might do both systems at the same time.